The wait time for an onshore Australian partner visa just hit 31 months, up from 28 months last quarter. This means 1 in 10 applicants will spend over 2.5 years with their lives entirely on hold. Before you even enter that waiting period, you have to hand over a mandatory, non-refundable application fee of $9,365 Australian dollars. Many couples assume that because their relationship is genuine, their approval will be swift. The data shows this is a dangerous assumption. Love does not dictate the speed of the Australian immigration system. While you wait, you are usually placed on a bridging visa. A bridging visa is a temporary permit that keeps you lawfully in the country during processing, but it requires paid permissions to travel internationally and often makes employers hesitate to hire you for long-term roles. The visa process is an administrative grading system of your competence in following instructions. How strictly you follow their framework determines whether you wait 1.5 years or nearly 3. This chart shows processing data for the onshore partner visa. The median wait sits at 18 months. The 90th percentile is 31 months, where messy applications go for heavy scrutiny. This gap between a clean and messy application creates a 13-month penalty. Right now, there are over 40,000 applications sitting in this exact pipeline, all competing for the attention of a limited number of case officers. Where your application lands in that 13-month gap is heavily dictated by the structural quality of your submission on the very first day you lodge it. The government enforces a strict quota system. Out of the 52,500 places allocated for the family migration stream, partner visas are capped at roughly 40,500. At the same time, the Department of Home Affairs is managing massive backlogs across skilled, student, and visitor visas. Case officers are severely resource-constrained. To manage this, the department applies enhanced scrutiny. They require an intense, thoroughly documented evidentiary burden to prove a relationship is authentic and ongoing. Case officers expect your evidence to be neatly organized into the 4 pillars of evidence. The 4 pillars is the official assessment framework the government uses to categorize the legitimacy of a partnership. The first pillar covers the financial aspects. This requires concrete proof of economic commingling, like joint bank accounts, shared expenses, and co-ownership of assets. The second pillar looks at the nature of the household. You have to prove actual shared living arrangements and domestic responsibilities through leases and household bills. The final 2 pillars measure your social context and mutual commitment. This requires statutory declarations from witnesses, photographic evidence, and formal future planning like wills or superannuation nominations. If you dump hundreds of unsorted documents into the portal and force the case officer to dig through them to satisfy these 4 pillars, your application instantly moves toward that 31-month worst-case scenario. The immediate penalty for submitting disorganized or missing evidence is an RFI. An RFI, or request for information, is a formal notice from the case officer pausing your application until you provide missing documents. Common triggers include relying on a joint account opened just last week, failing to provide statutory declarations from third-party witnesses, or having gaps in your proof of shared living. Every single RFI issued acts as a dead weight on your timeline, adding an estimated 2 to 4 months of processing delay to your specific application. When an RFI is issued, the department officially grants you 28 days to respond and upload the requested materials. The best mitigation strategy is to respond within 14 days. Submitting your missing evidence quickly prevents your file from being pushed to the very bottom of the case officer's workload. Rushing to lodge an incomplete application just to quickly get in the system is a false economy. The hours you save on preparation will cost you months of delays on the back end. For couples currently separated across borders, the timeline pressure often makes them consider the subclass 300 prospective marriage visa. Looking at this comparison table, the 300 visa appears to have a clear timeline advantage, a median wait of 11 months, compared to 18 months for the onshore 820. It also has an apparent upfront cost advantage, carrying a fee of $5,060 compared to the onshore fee of $9,365. But there is a strict condition attached. The 300 visa dictates that you must marry your partner within 9 months of arriving in Australia. Once you marry, you still have to apply for the onshore 820 visa anyway. You have to pay the full $9,365 fee, and the 18 to 31-month processing clock starts all over again from zero. The subclass 300 doesn't bypass the system. It operates as a premium toll road for offshore couples who are willing to pay double the government fees to physically reunite faster. To actively defend against landing in the 90th percentile, applicants have one major strategic lever prior to lodgement: a professional review by a registered migration agent. Agents audit your application to locate timeline inconsistencies across your forms and flag weak financial evidence before the department's case officers ever see them. This creates a high barrier to entry. Hiring an agent adds thousands in professional fees directly on top of the steep $9,365 visa charge. You have to weigh that upfront cash against the economic opportunity cost. Being trapped on a bridging visa for an extra 13 months often means deferred promotions, restricted travel, and prolonged career hesitation from local employers. Paying for professional review functions as an insurance policy against outright refusal and a direct investment in securing that 18-month median processing timeline. Navigating this pipeline effectively requires choosing a strategy that aligns with your specific capital constraints. If you take the DIY route to save capital, you must trade your time. You need to invest hundreds of hours to perfectly index your documents and aggressively map your evidence to the 4 pillars. If you are time poor and your primary goal is avoiding a 31-month career limbo, absorbing the cost of a professional review is mathematically the most favorable move. If you are separated offshore, the subclass 300 visa makes sense exclusively if immediate physical reunion is worth doubling your total visa expenditures. You cannot alter the government's 40,500 quota cap or fix their resource constraints. The only variable you control is your strategic response to their requirements. Submitting an application that is merely good enough ensures you will face the 31-month wait. Lodging a perfectly structured, decision-ready file on day 1 is your only defense.